Hello and welcome. In today's video, I'm going to share with you my top 10 favourite Ark Tames. But just before we get into it, make sure to like and subscribe as it really does help out the channel. In at number 10 is the Crystal Wyvern. Now these things came out when Crystal Isles came out, and these things in my opinion are a lot better than the Wyvern in so many aspects. These things are by far much easier to tame, just requiring a passive tame using the crystals found on Crystal Isles. It is so simple, and it can even be your first tame on the map. And once you have one of these things tamed, they are insanely useful for so many things. They can pick up a wealth of different creatures, which really makes them very convenient. Their weight stat is very decent for metal harvesting when that comes later on. And also, these things have great speed and agility just for general travel around the map. And they deal a very reasonable amount of damage on top of that as well. Especially if you are going for the Blood Crystal Wyvern, which is definitely my preferred option. The Crystal Wyvern is a must-have on Crystal Isles, and it is accessible to every Ark player that has Ark, as Crystal Isles is obviously a free DLC. There is no reason why you should not tame a Crystal Wyvern. Its uses are just so good, and the fact that it's such an easy tame means this is one of the best creatures in Ark, in my opinion. In at number 9 is the Snow Owl. Now this is a creature also accessible to every Ark player out there, as this thing is available on maps like Fjorda, which I'm really thankful for, as a great creature in my opinion should be accessible to all of Ark's players, and it really does make the creature so much more useful if every Ark player can actually use the thing instead of the people that have just paid for the DLCs. Firstly, to do with the Snow Owl has an absolutely insane glide ability, which it also does share with the Griffin. And compared to the Griffin, it just feels so much smoother and snappier than any other flyer, and even the Griffin itself. But in terms of PvP use, these things have a wealth of great abilities for that too. Firstly, they have this kind of heat seeking ability, where they can seek out any Ark organism that is listed across the map. This is great if you think someone is trying to raid your base, or someone has raided your base and you've simply lost them. You can just activate this and quickly find them, then pick them up with the Snow Owl and dispose of them as you wish. But in terms of the Snow Owl, you're also going to want to crank that stamina, as their stamina equates to how long they can heal creatures for in that frozen healing state that they have. But just do really take into mind that this will heal every creature in the vicinity. It won't just heal your tamed creatures, which you should really take into mind, as sometimes that may not be what you want if you're trying to kill the enemy. So in that case, a Daedon would be much more useful for healing your creatures. Or if you have access on PC to mods, then mods could be a good solution for you as well if you are playing on single player worlds. In at number 8 is the Mantis. Now again, this creature is accessible on Raasclark, which means every Ark player can tame this thing. And I would definitely say Raasclark is the go-to map for taming this thing, as where they spawn on Raasclark is a lot less harsh of a location than it is on Scorched Earth, and you do not need to kill death worms on Raasclark in order to actually tame the Mantis. You can kill woolly rhinos as well if you would prefer, but both still do spawn on the map, so you can really pick and choose there. Once you have tamed the Mantis, which is a little bit laborious, requiring you to have a ghillie suit, bug repellent, and for you to passive feed it woolly rhino horns or those deathworm horns, you have yourself an insanely good harvester, and also a great boss creature for killing the Manticore on Scorched Earth as well. On Raasclark, I will equip the swords onto this thing and just go ham on all of the overseers around the area and gather up all of that mutton, which is an extremely useful resource for just taming creatures, as sometimes I can't really be bothered with getting kibble, and mutton is the second best option, and it does keep a lot better than things like prime meat. And especially for me, having a mod for stacking, I really have no worries keeping all of that mutton. but sadly on official, mutton does not stack. Obviously, as you've seen here, the Mantis' main ability is wielding melee weapons. In at number 7 is the Argy or Argentavis, or as Squid says it, Argentavis. I will still never get over that minor mistake he made there. Either way, the Argentavis is an extremely useful creature that everyone again has access to, as this thing spawns on the island. So literally everyone has access to it, even mobile and Switch players that may not have access to all the free DLCs available. The Argentavis is by far one of the best creatures for gathering any kind of metal, as this thing has an insanely good weight stat, and it also has weight reduction on things like metal, crystal and obsidian. Also, the Argentavis can pick up a wealth of creatures as well, and if you pair this thing with an Anki that you have tamed, you can gather metal like never before. It really is an absolutely insane creature for getting all of that metal and all of those resources. Obviously, this thing can't harvest metal itself, but is an extremely useful tool in the metal gathering process. Also, on top of all of that, this thing has a wealth of other great abilities as well. Like, its saddle works as a portable smithy, which means if your metal weapons break while you're farming, you can just quickly repair it in the Argy. And also, they do regen insanely quickly when they eat a dead body. In at number 6 is the Carcharodontosaurus. Now, the Carcharodontosaurus is a very recent addition to Ark, and the Giga would have been in this spot. But the Carcharodontosaurus, in my opinion, is just so much of a better carnivore for the job that the Giga did, that the Giga does not warrant being on this list, in my opinion. But if you are thinking about taming a Giga, it doesn't mean the Giga is a bad creature. I still think the Giga is a very valid and viable creature for that need of a really strong carnivore. So if you have tamed a Giga, don't feel bad that you've tamed one. But the reason why I say the Carcharodontosaurus is so much better and so much more worth it is mainly its mobility. This thing's stamina doesn't suck like hell, and also this thing can move extremely fast compared to what the Giga has, which just means this creature is so much nicer to use than the Giga, as I'm not constantly frustrated that I've just run out of stamina. Also, when the Blood Rage ability is fully activated, this creature will be doing more damage than the Giga, but when the Blood Rage isn't activated, the Giga will do more damage than the Carcharodontosaurus. In terms of taming, this thing requires no tranks. It is simply a bit of a passive tame, and then it has a sort of mini game on top of that as well. You will need to feed it dead creatures until its taming bar above it goes green, and then you'll just need to absolutely decimate everything into land until that taming reaches 100%. In at number 5 is the Carnotaurus. Now, in my opinion, the Carno has always been the go-to creature for me, and I probably have a lot of bias since Squid's Ark series, where he tamed a Carno and named it Carny Dave. For me, back in those days of early Ark stages, the Carno was just the ultimate creature, as I couldn't even think of taming a Rex yet, and I didn't want something as low tier as a raptor, as I really didn't see any enjoyment in taming one. I just wanted to tame a Carno, as Squid tamed one, and they just looked so cool, and they had the power which I really needed at the time. Also, Carnotaurus, translated from Latin, means meatball, and that is why my first Carnotaurus I ever tamed, I called that thing Meatball, and the second one, in honor of Carny Dave, I called Carny Dave. I wasn't very original with namings back then, and at this point in my Ark journey, I will always name my Carno Meatball, and I rarely even name my dinos, so it is really special when I actually do name one of my creatures, as it means I'm really attached to that creature. But most of the creatures I tame, I don't even name. Also, since the TLC, the Carnotaurus is even better than ever before. Its second attack deals a wealth of bleed damage, which is an extremely useful thing to have on a carnivore. Not even the Rex has that. And also, its first attack in general just deals a very good amount of damage. The Carnotaurus is a very strong carnivore that doesn't seem to get stuck on things, as it is a very nice size, and it can be unlocked in the mid-level 50s. In at number 4 is the Rock Drake. Now, the Rock Drake is really an insane tame, which at some point, if you have access to tame one of these things, it is definitely worth it. But you'll 100% need to come prepared, as the Rock Drake is not a tame to be underestimated. You will certainly need some sort of creature to be able to get that egg out of the Rock Drake nest and deliver it back to your home safely. Also, you will need air conditioners. Don't even bother with torches, as the Rock Drake's egg temperature is so specific and so out of range of torches. You would just need so much to even get that egg incubating, so it really is not worth it. Just save up for the air conditioners, and once you have raised yourself this Rock Drake, you'll be glad that you actually spent all of that time preparing and getting a high level one, as these things are absolutely insane for so many things. Firstly, you can kind of call them flyers. Yes, they are gliders, but they can dash across the map with insane speed. And usually I prefer a glider over a flyer unless I'm traveling over really long distances on really flat pieces of ground. Like in the case of Crystal Isles, the Rock Drake isn't great as there aren't too many things to latch onto, but in the case of Arboration, that thing is littered with places to grab onto and latch onto, which makes the Rock Drake really useful. So on more traditional Ark maps, the Rock Drake may not be your best shout, as it doesn't have a wealth of things to grab onto, but it still can be very useful. And also, especially on Arboration, this thing is great for choosing through Rockroll with absolute ease. Definitely a strat you should try at some point. In at number 3 is the Shadow Mane. Now sadly this thing doesn't have a dossier, so that's why that picture was there instead of a dossier picture, but that doesn't mean Wildcard didn't care about this creature. Certainly not. The Shadow Mane is by far one of the best Ark creatures in the game, and it was introduced very recently, and luckily now can be found on maps like Fjorda, so it is accessible to people who didn't just buy Genesis Part 2, and I am so glad for it, as the Shadow Mane is by far one of the best Ark tames, having so much agility and also having a wealth of buffs on top of that. It has the hydration buff, it has the pack buff, it has alpha buffs, and also on top of all of that, it has the ability to go invisible as well, which really makes this creature an insane feat of Ark taming. Also, it's a great swimmer as well, but sadly this thing's taming method is an absolute hell to get through. The Shadow Mane may seem like a simple tame on paper, but trust me, you will struggle a lot through taming one, but you'll be glad that you did. In at number 2 is the Baryonyx. Now you may certainly not agree with this thing being so high on the list, but this is my top 10 creatures, not yours, and you can always feel free to comment your top 10 in the comments down below, as I'd really like to hear your thoughts on my picks and also what you generally use and what creatures you like as well. But the reason why I prefer the Baryonyx over the Shadow Mane is just I find myself using this creature so much more, and especially for caves I always find myself coming back to the Baryonyx and not using things like Shadow Manes for caves, as I'm just so much more used to using the Baryonyx and I like all of the features that it has. Sadly, this thing does not have the hydration buff, even though it would make sense if it did. Also, this thing does only eat fish, which can be a bit of an inconvenience, but really, coelacanths aren't that hard to kill, and I don't struggle with getting fish meat too much. Now, one of the main reasons why I use this is because of their spin ability, which you can access by pressing C on the keyboard. This only works on water, by the way, so sadly you cannot use this on land dinos, but in the water you can stun creatures up to the size of a megalodon, which really is overpowered, and it makes this thing great for doing underwater caves, especially considering this thing isn't an underwater creature and it is actually overall a very easy tame, and you really will not struggle with it, especially if you have the net gun. Otherwise you'll just need to make a very basic stone trap. These things really aren't difficult to tame, maybe about 20 tranks for a level 150, or if in some cases it's a bit higher, maybe you'll go for 40 tranks. I'll always bring about 50 and you will certainly be good for the tame. And finally, in at number 1 is the Maywing. And again, like the Shadowmane, this thing doesn't have a dossier. What are you doing, Wildcard? How do you not have a dossier for these things yet? But that also doesn't mean, like the Shadowmane, that Wildcard didn't put so much care and attention into these creatures. And the Maywing is my favourite creature in Ark by far, and can be found on maps like the Order. The Maywing is just such an easy tame to get, and especially if you have a net gun, these things are by far some of the easiest tames in the game, just requiring a bit of meat and one simple net projectile with maybe about 20 to 30 tranks. These things couldn't tame any easier. Once tamed though, you've got yourself an insanely good glider, which in my opinion glides significantly better than the Rock Drake and significantly faster. Yes, it doesn't have some of those dashing abilities like the Rock Drake has, and it loses out in the damage department, but for travel and many other things, this thing is just so much better. Especially if you are raising any kind of baby dinos, as this thing works as a portable feeding trough, and it can also steal enemy babies as well if you're into that in a PvP scenario. And actually, on top of all of that, they are great gatherers of berries as well. If the belly flop onto berries, they actually gather pretty well. But anyway, that is the end of today's video, and I hope you enjoyed. Comment your top 10 favourite Ark creatures, as I really do want to hear what your thoughts are on my list and your list, and I will see you all later. Bye.